When we think of Sparta, we imagine disciplined warriors living simply, shunning luxury. The image of the stoic Spartan eating black broth and sleeping on hard beds has become legendary. Their reputation for austerity and self-denial is so strong that it often overshadows other aspects of their society. But is this the whole story? In reality, for much of its history, Sparta was actually one of the wealthiest Greek city-states. Its lands were among the most fertile in Greece, and the city controlled vast territories in Laconia and Messenia. This allowed Sparta to accumulate resources and power that rivaled and sometimes surpassed its neighbors. This wealth didn't come from bustling markets or skilled craftsmen. Spartans were forbidden from engaging in trade or crafts. Instead, their riches came from the land itself, and from the labor of the Helots, an enslaved population who worked the fields and produced the food that sustained Spartan society. Each full Spartan citizen, or Spartiates, received a plot of land known as a kleros. The Helots were tied to this land, and their agricultural labor freed Spartans to focus entirely on military training, governance, and civic life. This system allowed a small elite to live lives of leisure and discipline, supported by the toil of many. Over time, however, changes in inheritance laws and social customs allowed land to concentrate in fewer and fewer hands. As estates grew larger for some, others lost their land entirely, creating a stark divide between the wealthy elite and the increasingly impoverished lower classes. This shift was gradual but profound, reshaping the very fabric of Spartan society. Some Spartans amassed vast estates, living in relative luxury, while others lost not only their land but even their citizenship, as property ownership was a requirement for full participation in Spartan life. The number of true Spartiates dwindled and the gap between rich and poor widened. The ideal of equality, so often celebrated in Spartan legend, masked a reality of growing inequality and economic tension. Beneath the surface, resentment simmered as the promise of equal citizenship faded for many. Wealthy citizens could afford horses, fine clothing, and political influence, while the poor struggled to meet even the basic obligations required to maintain their status. The social fabric of Sparta became increasingly strained, as opportunities for advancement disappeared for most. This growing economic divide contributed directly to Sparta's decline. With fewer citizens able to maintain their status, the famed Spartan army shrank, and the city's power waned. The once mighty warrior society found itself weakened from within. The story of Sparta is not just one of warriors and battles, but also of landowners, aristocrats, and a society deeply shaped by wealth, privilege, and disparity. The myth of Spartan equality was, in many ways, just that, a myth. To truly understand Sparta, we must look beyond the legend of uniformity and discipline, and see the complex economic forces and social divisions that shaped its rise and fall. Only then can we appreciate the full, surprising truth about Spartan wealth. There was more than a military boot camp. It was a system to create loyal, disciplined citizens. From age 7, boys left their families to be raised by the state, learning obedience, endurance, and group identity. Training was harsh. Meager rations, physical hardship, and constant competition. Boys learned to steal food, not just for survival, but to develop cunning and resourcefulness. Education included literacy, poetry, music, and dance. Tools for unity and discipline, not just leisure. The forged intense bonds among peers, building loyalty that would carry on to the battlefield. Older citizens oversaw the process, ensuring values were passed down. By graduation, a Spartan was not just a warrior, but a citizen conditioned to put the community first, that shaped the very soul of Sparta. The life of a Spartiate was structured, but not endless military drill. Mornings often began with managing their estates, overseeing helots, ensuring enough produce for the communal mess. Physical training and military exercises filled much of the day, reinforcing fitness and camaraderie. These sessions were as much about social bonding as combat readiness. The, or communal meal, was the heart of civic life, where men ate, debated, and reinforced Spartan values. Attendance was mandatory. Missing it meant losing one's status. Evenings allowed for family, training sons, or hunting, always with the state's expectations in mind. Participation in politics and assemblies rounded out their duties. Spartan life was a careful balance of private, public, and communal responsibilities. Sparta's communal messes were essential to citizenship. Admission required unanimous approval, ensuring trust and unity among members. Each man contributed produce from his land. Failure meant loss of citizenship. Meals were simple, with the infamous black broth, but the real purpose was social and political bonding. The mess was a forum for debate, mentorship, and the sharpening of Spartan wit. Older members tested the younger, passing down values and traditions. The created bonds stronger than family. These were the men you'd fight beside. Brotherhood forged at the table translated directly to discipline on the battlefield. More than a meal, thee was the glue of Spartan society. It was here that the next generation of leaders was shaped. Spartan women lived lives unlike any others in Greece. While most Greek women were secluded, Spartan women were educated, athletic, and visible in public life. Their main duty was to bear strong children, so girls trained in sports and received a state-sponsored education. They could inherit and manage property, gaining economic power and independence. With husbands often away, women ran households and estates, wielding real authority. Marriage customs were unique: ritual abductions, secret visits, and a focus on producing healthy offspring. Spartan women were outspoken, confident, and respected, famously saying, "We are the only ones who give birth to men." Their status was a pillar of Spartan society, and their influence was felt in every aspect of life. In Sparta, women were essential to the state's strength and legacy. From the very moment of birth, Spartan children were not simply the offspring of their parents, they belonged to the state itself. The community, rather than the family, was seen as the true guardian of every new life. Newborns were carefully inspected by elders for signs of strength and health. Only those deemed fit were allowed to be raised, while the fate of the weak was left to the judgment of the community. Although stories of infanticide have been told for centuries, many historians believe these tales may be exaggerated, serving more as a warning than a common practice. Until the age of 7, children remained at home, nurtured by their mothers. Yet even in these early years, discipline, endurance, and obedience were instilled through daily routines and simple tasks. Spartan parents were expected to raise their children with a sense of duty and resilience, preparing them for the challenges ahead. At the age of 7, boys left their families behind and entered the agoge, Sparta's rigorous state-run education and training system. For the next decade, they lived communally with their peers, enduring harsh discipline, physical challenges, and strict supervision. Family bonds were replaced by loyalty to the group and the state. This system deliberately broke traditional family ties, forging unbreakable loyalty to fellow Spartans and to the city itself. The agoge was designed to create unity, courage, and unwavering obedience. While boys trained for war, girls remained at home, but their education was also shaped by the state. Spartan girls were taught athletics, music, and dance, all intended to build strong bodies and minds, so they too could contribute to the strength of Sparta. Both boys and girls grew up surrounded by their peers, learning to cooperate, compete, and support one another. This communal upbringing ensured that every generation was deeply rooted in Spartan values of discipline, unity, and sacrifice. In Sparta, the state became the true family, binding its citizens together in a powerful sense of shared purpose and identity. This unique upbringing was the very foundation of Sparta's legendary strength and unity, setting it apart from all other Greek city-states. Every Spartan child was molded from the start to serve the community above all else, ensuring the survival and dominance of their society for generations. In ancient Lacedaemon, or Sparta, the rhythms of daily life were shaped by a strict social hierarchy. At the base of this system were the Helots, a subjugated people who worked the land and provided the essential food that allowed Spartan citizens to focus on other pursuits. These Helots were not merely servants but an entire class forced into agricultural labor, their lives marked by hardship and little hope of freedom. The Helots' toil produced the agricultural surplus that sustained the Spartan state, but their existence was defined by constant oppression. They lived under the threat of violence, their labor extracted through fear, and their numbers kept in check by harsh measures. To maintain control, the Spartans created the Crypteia, a secretive force of young men tasked with intimidating and punishing the Helots. This institution was notorious for its brutality, using terror as a tool to prevent rebellion and ensure the Helots' submission. Above the Helots were the Perioikoi, free but not full citizens. They lived in surrounding villages, handling trade, crafts, and even serving as auxiliary soldiers. The perioikoi were essential to the Spartan economy, bridging the gap between the rigid warrior elite and the laboring helots. The perioikoi produced the goods and tools that Spartans needed, but were forbidden to make themselves, from weapons and armor to everyday pottery and clothing. For the Spartiates, or full citizens, life was devoted to military training and communal living. Their leisure activities, hunting, athletic contests, and religious festivals, were designed to reinforce discipline, unity, and martial prowess. Hunting was not just a pastime, but a form of preparation for war. Chariot racing and horse breeding were elite pursuits, symbols of status and skill, and opportunities to display courage and competitiveness. Even in their moments of rest, Spartans were expected to train their bodies and minds for the demands of battle, always ready to serve the state above all else. The entire Spartan system, with its famed warriors and strict discipline, ultimately depended on the labor of others, those who worked unseen and uncelebrated. The stark contrast between the leisure of the citizen elite and the relentless toil of the helots was at the heart of Spartan society, shaping its values and its vulnerabilities. This deep division was both the foundation of Sparta's strength and, ultimately, its greatest weakness. A society balanced on the edge between dominance and unrest. The image of Sparta as an invincible, mindless war machine is a myth. Spartans suffered defeats and were often cautious, even conservative, in politics and war. The supposed equality of the homoioi masked deep economic divides and a shrinking citizen class. Infanticide stories are likely exaggerated, evidence for systematic culling is lacking. Sparta was not devoid of culture. Arts, music, and poetry thrived, especially in earlier centuries. Their famed laconic wit was a cultivated art, not a sign of dullness. Spartan society was complex, not a caricature of brutality or simplicity. Their values were unique, but their reality was far more nuanced than legend suggests. To understand Sparta, we must look past the myths and see the real people behind the legend. To truly understand Sparta, we must move beyond the myths of crimson cloaks and rigid discipline. Sparta was a society of contradictions, championing equality while built on inequality, producing warriors and powerful women, yet stifling change. Its strength was also its undoing. Fear of revolt, rigid laws, and economic decline led to its fall. Studying Sparta forces us to ask hard questions about society, freedom, and the cost of stability. Their discipline and unity inspire, but their oppression and rigidity warn us. Look deeper, read ancient sources, explore modern research, and discover the real Spartans. Their story is more relevant and complex than any myth. The journey into their world is a lesson for us all.